Hi, I'm getting more and more disheveled as I do these videos. So for the third and final video, I want to share what I learned from Katie Morrison's speaker series on Thursday night. Her guests were Katie Morrison, Lorne Fitch, and Dr. Brad Stelfox, three of the most experienced people working on coal impacts in the eastern slopes. If you want to critique the Grassy Mountain in terms of reference from the science angle, these are the people to listen to, and here's what I took away. Katie said two things that landed hard. First, pushing for a joint AER, Department of Fisheries and Oceans, review won't necessarily protect fish. The Department of Fisheries and Oceans recently raised allowable selenium thresholds under industry pressure. Not because fish can suddenly tolerate more, but because the government redefined what level of harm is acceptable. This is a political decision dressed up as science. Second, she pointed out the democratic trap. Participating in the process can be spun as support. That's what led me to propose the third option: participate but do not consent, which I went into in the first video. Lorne Fitch walked through Alberta's coal history and the new terms of reference for the version 2 North Back EIA proposal. He joked that Brian Jean sees reapplying for coal approval after failing, like failing a driver's test. You keep on trying until you pass. And in a way, he's right. Companies cannot change the science, but they can change the assumptions until the predicted risks look acceptable. Katie gave a perfect example. Northback agreed to strict water handling rules during exploration, then immediately applied for an exemption to release water into Gold Creek, critical West Slope cutthroat trout habitat. This is the pattern. Promise anything up front, then seek exemptions from a regulator whose mandate is to facilitate industry. Brad Stelfox revisited his 2020 modeling of all 8 proposed mines in the Oldman headwaters. His conclusion: we were on track for an Elk Valley scale contamination crisis. He called Grassy Mountain Domino 1. If this project goes ahead, the rest of the eastern slopes becomes almost impossible to defend. He also flagged water scarcity. The Oldman system can sustain about 1.6 million cubic meters of water use. We are already using 1.4 million, with 2 million legally allocated already. That's before a single new coal project. Lorne emphasized that fish in the Crow's Nest and McLeod already carry consumption advisories. Fish are bellwethers. Their toxin loads reflect cumulative watershed stress. We are not starting from zero. We are starting from a system already degraded by legacy mines, heavy sediment releases, exploration runoff. If an EIA pretends the baseline is clean, it's misleading by design. Katie added another key point. In 2017, federal coal effluent limits were also raised, again to match industry's preferred comfort zone. The shift was not scientific. It was a shift in values, from protect fish to protect industry from inconvenience. Brad addressed the industry narrative that new technologies can deliver a win-win-win, industry, nature, and community all benefiting. Joan Juan Martinez Allier calls this the gospel of eco-efficiency. With coal, Brad said plainly, that fantasy does not hold. Water quality and water quantity are hard limits. You cannot engineer your way out of the geology of the eastern slopes. Lorne recalled participating in a study by 5 retired biologists reviewing Alberta's coal record. They found that every single coal mine in Alberta had experienced catastrophic containment failure. The common cause, underbuilt systems built cheaply, meeting extreme weather. Climate change guarantees more extreme weather. There is no engineering fix for this, especially when monitoring is as sparse and understaffed as in Alberta. Brad added that Grassy Mountain, and especially the cumulative 8-mine scenario, could produce 2 billion metric tons of carbon dioxide. So Grassy Mountain really is going to be a gassy mountain, and none of this appears in the terms of reference. Every proposed coal project in advanced status in Alberta right now overlaps critical trout habitat. Selenium levels in the McLeod are already high. Species are threatened, endangered, or at risk. Only about 25% of historically damaged critical habitat has been reclaimed. The rest remains scarred, dragging down ecosystems for generations. One of the biologists in the audience of the Zoom also flagged a near hidden project near Nordegg, the Aries project, which seems to be kept deliberately quiet. Lorne made this point clearly. Coal mining isn't point source pollution. You can't turn off the hose once the pollution starts. It will affect groundwater and surface water everywhere. Mitigation strategies like rearranging rock piles to reduce leaching are still unproven at the scale needed. When Northback suggested they could use surface water from the mountain instead of taking from streams, Lorne asked the obvious question. If they rob the surface water from the mountain before it reaches the stream, how is there going to be a stream? Next point, landscape connectivity, essential to the whole Yellowstone to Yukon wildlife conservation corridor, is nowhere in the terms of reference. Katie emphasized that all forms of opposition matter: scientific, political, legal, and cultural. Lorne warned that intervener status at an AER hearing is extremely expensive. Groups like Eco-Justice will need serious backing. All three agreed on one key message: no coal anywhere, not case by case, not mine by mine. A unified provincial stance is essential. Risa Proc in the audience closed with the most effective entry point for conversations with Albertans to raise their awareness. Ask people, how's your water? That's where everything becomes real. And that's it. And I will just add that further video I would suggest watching is What We Would Like to Believe, which I will also try and post. It's about the economic case for the technology that is being promised. Given the coal deposits and their low quality, is what is promised really even economically feasible? Thanks, and that's the end of the 3-part series. Katie's example of Northback's exemption request highlights a larger truth. The terms of reference are not neutral. They pre-shape what the EIA will consider and what it will conveniently overlook. If the public doesn't flag foreseeable abuses now, they become baked into the entire assessment. One way to block this playbook is to insert explicit protections directly into the terms of reference. For example, no exemptions to approved water handling or discharge limits shall be granted without a new, publicly consulted approval process. All variance requests must include updated risk assessments and public disclosure. This isn't a technical fix, it's a framing fix. It closes the loopholes before they can be exploited. These are the scientific and policy realities behind the Grassy Mountain proposal, and they show why the terms of reference must be challenged, not only on technical grounds, but on democratic, ecological, and structural ones.